1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, and 9, and 10. Good Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Status Coup News. I am your host, Kim Brown. Very happy to be joining you all today. And thank you all so much for tuning in to Status Coup News. Please give the video a thumbs up, give us a like, and subscribe to the channel. If you're not already a member of Status Coup, please take a moment to do so to support left independent media outlets, because if you guys did not know, people with this political bent and political ideology are being drummed off social media channels such as Twitter. We're going to get to that a little bit later on in the show, where ever since apartheid Clyde, aka Elon Musk, has taken over ownership of Twitter, left-leaning journalists, particularly those who have identified and covered not only fascists, but a lot of these white supremacist organizations like the Proud Boys, like the Oath Keepers, these accounts of these journalists mostly have been mass targeted, mass reported, and have had their accounts suspended. Joining us later in the show, we're going to be speaking with journalist Vishal Singh, who himself was mass reported and targeted, had both of his Twitter and Instagram accounts deleted or suspended, over 30,000 followers. And Vishal has been integral in covering and identifying the fascist rise in Southern California and really along the entire West Coast. And we're going to talk about what it means to be deplatformed on allegedly the social media platform for free speech. Some bullshit. We're also going to be talking about in this show the announcement by New York City Mayor Eric Adams that people who are unhoused on the streets of New York City themselves will be targeted and identified for involuntary hospitalization. I'm sorry, what? Oh, we're kidnapping people off the streets and housing them in institutions. Sounds very eugenically familiar, right? We've seen this play out before. And the audacity in a city as wealthy as New York, where the NYPD boasts a budget of billions, that this is the way that Eric Adams decides to in fact engage in class warfare against the poor and unhoused. But let's get it started with our main story, talking about some class warfare. As you guys have probably heard, it is true. Joe Biden has mandated and directed Congress to deny railroad workers the ability to strike. And today, the House passed two bills. We'll get into the particulars of those bills in just a moment, but effectively precluding railroad workers from striking and forcing them to accept a bullshit contract that does nothing to address their primary concerns of lack of paid sick days off. This is what this is all about. As these rail barons continue to rake in many hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars in profit, the railroad workers, the union workers, were asking for, I believe it was 15 or 14 paid days off, primarily for sick days. Sick days. These people are not asking for 6 weeks paid vacation, though they fucking should be. No, they were asking for 2 weeks off for the year to be able to go to the doctor, to attend to their families, their partners, their children, if they were indeed sick, without penalty. Because what a lot of these railroad workers were mandated to do was to not only forego their sick time, but they would be penalized if they took off of work, and they were always on call, work on demand. And for the Biden administration, well, firstly, for Joe Biden to beat his chest, boom, 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 like, I'm the president for the union. I am the pro-union president here. Joe Biden has spit in the face of unionized workers. He has spit in the face of working people in this country and has let you know that the oligarchs that run America run every single aspect of America, and you do not even have the legal right to withhold your labor without federal intervention telling you to go the fuck back to work. Let's pop up that first tweet from More Perfect Union if we could, Colin. Let me cough here for a second. Yeah, so More Perfect Union was breaking this down. So let me give y'all the play-by-play. Let me pull this up myself. So it says breaking. This was as of this afternoon. The House passes legislation guaranteeing 7 days. Is this the one? 7 days of paid sick leave? Because there's a lot going on here. So let me be clear. So in the House today, they voted on they voted on one bill and then they voted on an amendment proposed by Senator Bernie Sanders. So the bill that they voted on today would in effect deny workers, the railroad workers, the ability to strike, and they got one paid sick day. Okay, this is what the Biden administration wanted Congress, the House rather, to vote upon, right? So that passed. Okay, well, both of these things passed. Let me be clear about that. But the second piece that passed was the House passed a piece of legislation. This is also courtesy of More Perfect Union reporting, guaranteed 7 days of paid sick leave as part of a mandated rail labor agreement. Now, the vote for this vote in the House was 221 to 207. All the Democrats backed the measure. All the Republicans opposed it except for 3. The Senate is expected to vote on the rail labor contract tomorrow. That would be Thursday. So here's what happened. The Democratic caucus, everybody agreed, but save one. I believe it was Rashida Tlaib. Shout out to Jordan Cheriton for giving us the scoop on that. But most of the Democrats voted in favor of the Biden plan that would only allow one paid sick day. One. Bernie Sanders in the Senate proposed an amendment that would extend that to a whopping 7 days. Okay. So while it is clear that the House has already determined that no strike will be forthcoming, it is still not clear whether or not the railroad workers, the unionized workers, will get 1 paid sick day or 7. It is all paltry. These are peanuts. These are pennies. The crumbs literally off the table of Warren Buffett's hoard, right? He allowed some crumbs to fall that potentially some of his workers might get 1 paid sick day. This is class warfare, everybody. These are the billionaires and the millionaires and the American oligarchs declaring war on the working people, period, point blank. And this is in the form of the railroad workers. Now, what we keep hearing a lot, and please be mindful of the ways that mainstream media outlets are framing this. And actually, I want us to go to a clip of CNN coverage today of the potential of this railroad strike. And do you think CNN's concerned about the workers? No. CNN, like the mainstream media, like the puppet masters that run this country, they are concerned with the health of the economy. The economy, yes, everybody should sacrifice themselves for the economy. This is giving me big February, March 2020 vibes when COVID first hit the American mainland with a vengeance. You should go out there and sacrifice yourself for the health of the economy. This is what capitalism insists that we all do. But listen to the breathlessness way in which pundits and those who appeared on CNN today in this montage clip discussed the health of the economy. Fuck them workers. Let's take a look.
A rail strike is one of the most disruptive and expensive things that can happen to an economy.
A rail shutdown or strike would disrupt supply chains.
A strike means food prices could skyrocket.
Many experts are saying would be an economic catastrophe.
That could mean a big shortage and massive price hikes. Even gas prices could increase.
And it also could cost the economy $1 billion within the first week.
That would cripple the economy.
I'm not setting aside the concerns of your members, but are you and your members willing to stop the rails, in effect, and accept those costs to the U.S. economy?
Do you believe a strike is worth it if it cripples the U.S. economy and costs up to $2 billion a day?
More than $2 billion per day.
Is it worth it?
And on top of all of that, the holidays are right around the corner.
It's a little less than a month right before Christmas here.
Especially right before the holidays.
President Biden warning if that happened, it would devastate the economy if we had a strike like that. So joining me now to talk about this and a lot more is Bank of America. It's Brian Moynihan, chairman and CEO, one of the biggest banks in the world.
Yes. Let us ask the rich white guy what the fuck he thinks, right? Because we don't get enough of the rich white guy perspective on mainstream cable news. Now, everything I heard in that clip had everything to do with class division, trying to pit working people against each other, and fear mongering. All that rhetoric regarding the holidays are upcoming and gas prices will go back up. All of these things are absolutely true. But at the end of the day, if other working people do not stand up for what these rail workers are asking for, then by extension, I was going to say it was going to extend to the rest of us, but a lot of working people out here don't get paid sick time off. They do not get paid holidays. If you don't work, you do not eat in America. In this capitalist system, your labor is to be exploited for as much as the oligarchs can extract out of you. Okay. But I don't like the way in which the whole framing about the holiday season and making people paranoid, like, oh my goodness, I won't be able to get my children their holiday gifts. And what happens if gas goes up? The fact of the matter is, what these rail workers are asking for is literally the bare minimum. Now, part of what the rail barons, the owners of the railroads, did agree to and stipulate to was, I believe, a 24% increase in salary over the course of a few years, which on its surface sounds really good. It sounds as though, hey, that's a reasonable accommodation, right? If your employer gave you a 24% raise, you would probably be very happy. But if they said, but now you're on call 24/7, now you can't take off work sick and expect to get paid for it. In fact, you may actually be penalized for it. That raise is not sounding so good these days, right? That raise may not be exactly what you thought it was, because all of the life compromises that you have to give up in order to get that 24% raise. But fuck that. If I'm making 24% more in my salary year over year and I can't take a vacation, the fuck? What is the point? What am I doing this for? If I can't spend time with my family, what am I doing this for? If I can't go to my children's athletic events, what am I doing this for? If I can't celebrate vacations and anniversaries with my partner, what am I doing this for? If I can't spend time with my aging parents, what am I doing this for? And what these people are doing it for, tragically, is to enrich the bottom lines of people like Warren Buffett and the other railroad oligarchs. But clearly we see this across the sector. We see this across the working spectrum of every single industry in this country. These companies and corporations, and specifically capitalism, are out to exploit us, the working people, by any means necessary and in every single way possible. And the fact of the matter is, this economy doesn't work without us. Okay. And if we want to nail it down, let's get back to the rail workers. It damn sure, this economy absolutely does not work without these rail workers. Hence the class division politics and the framing that you're seeing in the mass media to try to pit us as working people against those working people, the railroad workers, because God forbid they could inconvenience us some, right? And I know it's deeper than inconvenience. I know that a lot of necessities ride the rails beyond our commerce and retail stuff. People who are disabled, people who are dependent upon medications and medical equipment in order to survive. This is going to affect them greatly should these workers go on strike. But that is not a reason for them not to strike, because in fact, if they stand up for what they are owed, and truthfully, I feel like they're asking for too little. And I even feel as though what Bernie proposed is also too little, those 7 paid sick days. But let's go ahead. Let me hear from Bernie. Let's go with the Bernie clip, if we could there, Colin, because Bernie is really good at making the speeches. Bernie is really good at laying out the divisions in income and wealth inequality that exist in this country and have existed since this country was founded. But Bernie's not asking for enough. Okay. He's not asking for enough. And even on his Twitter feed, he said that 7 paid sick days is not radical. No, it's not radical at all, Bernie. You absolutely got that right. But let's take a look at Bernie live today, not currently, but he was live earlier on the floor of the Senate, making his pitch. So let's check that out.
So if you look at the rail industry today, what you will understand is that this industry has seen huge record-breaking profits in recent years. Huge profits. In fact, in the first 3 quarters, not a whole year, 3 quarters of this year, the rail industry made a record-breaking $21 billion in profit. Further, they have so much money, profits are so high, that the industry spent over $25 billion this year not to improve rail safety, not to address the supply chain crisis, but to buy back its own stock and hand out huge dividends to its wealthy stockholders. In fact, since 2010, and I hope every member of Congress hears this, the rail industry has spent over $183 billion on stock buybacks and dividends. And on top of all of that, the CEOs of many of these railroad companies are enjoying huge compensation packages. So while workers struggle, last year the CEO of CSX made over $20 million in total compensation. The CEO of Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern made over $14 million each in total compensation. In other words, within the rail industry, corporate profits are soaring and CEOs are making incredibly large compensation packages. But in the midst of all of that, it is fair to ask what is going on for workers. Profits record-breaking, CEOs tens of millions of dollars a year in compensation. What's going on for the workers in the rail industry? And the reality is that the key issue in the rail dispute that we are dealing with right now, votes taking place as we speak in the House, is not about salaries, not about how much money workers there are earning. The key issue is the working conditions in the rail industry, which are absolutely unacceptable.
And let's be clear, the working conditions for most people are fucking unacceptable, especially if you are an hourly wage worker. Even if you're a salary worker, chances are your working conditions are not optimal. Let me give some more clarification here. As reported by More Perfect Union, Bernie Sanders' amendment to guarantee 7 days of paid sick leaves to rail workers is building momentum. Rubio, Cruz, Hawley indicate that they may support John Cornyn. Senator Cornyn from Texas suggests that it may have enough GOP votes to pass the Senate. Nancy Pelosi says the House will vote on Sanders' proposal tomorrow. That would be today. This was reported on by More Perfect Union last night on the 29th. Big up to Lauren Kaori Gurley as well. Big up to all the labor reporters. You know, shout out to everybody that covers labor because, woo, that labor beat has heated up quite a bit over the past couple of years. Lauren Kaori Gurley, who reports labor for Washington Post, says that looks like adding 7 paid sick days to the rail deal proposed by Bernie Sanders was significantly less popular. The House passed that bill 221 to 207. Biden's deal without sick days passed 290 to 137. And labor reporter David Dayen also gives a little bit more clarification, saying we got some clarification on this. So what this does, that is voting on the amendment and the other bill separately, what this mainly does is that it ensures a vote in the Senate on the sick days amendment. It does not fuse the two bills together. And that is rather important, everybody, because if the Biden amendment fails the Senate, and the other version passes, well, then the rail workers are going to be forced into a contract in which they still have 0 sick days, 0 paid sick days. And it's important to note that in this House vote, all the Democrats, I can't even say most, save one, all the Democrats except for one, all voted for the Biden plan with 0 sick days, that version. And again, the only Democrat to not vote in favor of that was Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib. big up to Rashida. Rashida be holding, excuse me, I thought it was on my channel. I was going to say Rashida be holding her nuts, but she does. Sometimes more than the rest of them. And big up to her. And shout out to Bryce Covert, also labor reporter, tweeted that workers demanded 15 paid sick days. Biden's deal gives them one single day off a year. You don't get to call yourself the champion of unions and paid leave while forcing unionized workers into a deal with a single paid day off. And then this is where I circle back to, guys. This is why the name of my channel is called Burn It Down with Kim Brown, because this is it. This is the best that we can expect as working people. And when I see specifically who these rail workers are, and truthfully, I do not know what the racial and gender demographic breakdown of are these railroad workers who are in these unions who are, fighting this great fight. But everyone I see that's talking is a white guy. And I need y'all to understand, if America's doing white men like this, okay, if they willing to do white men like this, woo, the rest of y'all and me, we have no chance whatsoever. And this is where the class warfare makes itself so very obvious. And the Democrats are firmly against the working class. Joe Biden is siding with the oligarchs, even with the Republicans, against working people. There are no political allies in the halls of power for the working people, and let alone poor people as well. This is a perfect opportunity. If the railroad workers decided to do a wildcat strike and say, fuck this shit, we not going to work, ain't nothing getting transported across these railroads, we have to be there willing to support them. We honestly do, because don't fall into the trap of we have to protect the economy. We don't have to protect shit. Okay, we don't have to protect shit. We are not the main benefiters from this economy. All of this wealth transfer that we have seen happen from the working class and poor classes up to the very, very wealthy during this pandemic should have been a big red flag. It should have been a big blinking beacon for us to get out into the streets and to demand what is exactly owed to us, which we are not getting. And you're seeing these men, these working class white men, and I look at them and I'm hearing in my head all of the layoffs and reductions in railroad staff that has happened in this industry over the past 5 or so years. And I see these white guys and I'm like, well, those must be the ones left, because clearly, well, maybe y'all don't know, but Black people know that we are the last hired and the first fired. Right. So I look at these guys, I'm like, wow, these must be the guys that they decided to keep around. And look how they're treating them. Look how they are treating them terrible. Treat them like animal. It's bad. It's very bad. And when we look at who our elected leadership is, especially when we look at members of, say, the squad, I don't see no solidarity. I might hear chop chop chop. I might hear some ram ram ram. I might hear some solidarity, but when it comes to dollars to donuts, when it comes to action, when it comes to the ways in which people vote, I'm not seeing it really from the squad at all. But I want you guys to take a listen to this clip. So in that montage of CNN drivel that we saw at the very end, they were going to speak with Bank of America CEO. And I looked at this interview and I thought, first of all, why do you ask the armed robber to come in and talk about why the bank got robbed? Like these are the main ones stealing from the rest of us. But I want you guys to listen to the question that is asked of the Bank of America CEO pertaining to workers and how workers have been asserting their power and reasserting their power in really ways that we have not seen in this country in quite some time. And I want you to listen very carefully to the answer that he gives and the way that he frames the power dynamic that has happened between workers and employers. Let's take a look.
I want to talk about what's going on with workers. You employ so many people at Bank of America. You've also you have led on wages, increasing wages now to $22 an hour at the bottom. They're going to be $25 an hour by 2025. But real wages are down for folks because of inflation. And something's going on with workers. I was home in Minnesota this weekend. Coffee shops were closed. They couldn't find workers. Restaurants can't find enough workers. We're seeing unionization at companies that never saw it before. Starbucks, Amazon, news outlets like BuzzFeed. What is happening with the American worker?
Well, the labor markets got very tight, so the dynamics shifted. That with the kind of employment levels we had, claims for unemployment still are bumping along at very low levels, levels that haven't been seen since the numbers of workers are like 25% lower. So, the labor market's very tight, and so the negotiation power moves around, right? I mean, that's what happens. The quit rates got way high. What you're seeing that now is mitigate, which is actually good from the Fed perspective in terms of the economy, but you're seeing that mitigate. Now, how do we think about that? Yeah. Our job is to provide an ability for an 18-year-old to join our company and to be here their entire career and get themselves educated and trained with us. And you do that all day. I just celebrated a 50, 55, 60, 65, and a 75-year employee the other day. So think of 75, do some math, and think that the person started as 18 and went to college. That's what great employers do. And so our turnover rate moved up like everybody else has already moved back down. My guess is by early next year, we'll be back in line where it was in 19, which is good. But that takes employers really saying, how do I holistically help a person develop a career?
Like you guys gave money, a lot of it, to employees to pay for childcare during the pandemic when you asked them to come back.
I cannot stand it when journalists openly suck up to powerful people. It's really it really grinds my gears. Thank you so much, Double K, for your super chat. Thank you for supporting Status Coup News today. So listening to the Bank of America CEO, they're talking about the way that the power shifted, that when the labor market had a lot of openings and workers were leaving jobs, the Great Resignation, you remember that? Yes, I still support that shit. The Great Resignation was in full effect, and workers were saying, take this job and shove it. Take this job and shove it. This job is not worth my actual life because, hey, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I know everybody likes to pretend as though the pandemic was 5 whole years ago. No, we are still very much in the middle of a pandemic. And in 2020 and 2021, we saw workers making decisions, especially so-called essential workers, prioritizing their health and safety and the health and safety of their families over the corporate bottom line and profits of a lot of these companies. Ergo, workers were in demand and they were able to write their check, write their ticket, pay me this, give me this amount of paid time off, or I just won't come work for you. And of course, the corporations, the business class of this country is extremely uncomfortable with that and have clapped back in ways. That's what I think a lot of this inflation stuff is. It's not inflation per se. It is price gouging. It is the wealthy class striking back against the working class for actually having the audacity to ask for things. And they said, well, how about this? How about we hike up the prices to everything sure, they can say supply chain and all that shit. That was not the case with gasoline over the summer when gasoline prices were exorbitant and outrageous, and the oil and gas companies were just outright profiteering and price gouging Americans and people in this country for the sake of their profits. They don't give a damn about what the economy does to working people. What they care about is their profit margins. And if there's anything that's going to compromise that, then that must be stopped, okay? Including workers taking up for themselves and agreeing to a strike. And the fact that Congress, the House so far, and Congress have outright kneecapped these unions and are forcing their workers into this bullshit contract is an embarrassment. Embarrassing does not even really sum it up. It's shameful. And it should be rage inducing. It should be enough to get people out in the streets. And what I'm hoping again for the rail workers to do the wildcat strike, not agree to these terms, walk off the job and grind this economy to a halt, because that is the only thing that the oligarchs will ever feel, and they won't even really feel it. And yes, the bulk of the short-term pain will be borne on the working class. But guys, it's either this or we got to get out in the streets and burn the shit down. Either we stand with these rail workers, should they decide not to adhere to this, which I really hope that they don't. And let's be clear, it only takes one sector, really one entire sector, to strike in order to set it off. I think the general strike is our direct path to getting some sort of economic equality in this country. Some sort. At minimum, can we have a social safety net? Can everybody have access to universal health care, universal mental health care, universal basic income? These are not exorbitant asks, okay? And especially under capitalism, which is not considerate of the rent prices and the gas prices, right? America has to do something different in order to keep its people sustained. I don't give a fuck about the economy. Sustain the people of this nation. And you wonder why half of the country has laws in place that are forcing women to bear children, because people are looking at this economy and these set of conditions and making different fucking choices. They do not want to bring children into this. But that's why they are now being forced to, legally compelled to bear kids into this capitalist system. I do not like it here. Get me out of here. Thank you so much again, Double K. As a retired union leader, this pisses me off. Double K, let me tell you, I saw a tweet, and let me see if I can find it quickly. But this tweet was reported to have been on a conference call or a call with AFL-CIO leaders. And the AFL, just to be clear, I don't believe has come out and made a statement for or against the status of these two legislative things that were in the House today. But according to the tweet, and I'm sorry, I can't find it right off the top of my head or in the palm of my hand, but allegedly the president of the AFL-CIO is encouraging their members to, take another look at this deal. Said it's a very good contract. It's not. I don't care how much. I don't care if you give these people a 50% boost in their salary. If they can't have a paid sick day off, again, what is the point? What is the point? And I was going to say something about work-life balance, but I'm really having a problem with that entire phrase as it is, because it puts work first. Like, it's not life-work balance. No, it's work-life balance. Why? Because in this country, you are only as good as the labor that you are able to provide, right? And if you're not able to provide labor, children, disabled people, elderly, well then, good luck, little buddies. Good luck. You're kind of on your own out here. All the more reason why. And again, I'm circling back to, I'm praying truly for a wildcat strike from the railroad workers. Start getting your supplies together now. This is where community organizing can really take the lead, okay? And mutual aid organizations, okay? Start gearing up, preparing potentially for this strike to truly cause a lot of disruptions to the goods and services that we are accustomed to getting within a certain amount of time frame, right? So if you have people that rely on medical equipment or certain prescriptions, or I don't fucking know, shit, I don't know, start stockpiling shit. Start asking people, start asking your elderly community, start asking your disabled neighbors, start asking people, hey, what are things that you might need if these things are not going to be potentially readily available on store shelves for an indeterminate amount of time? Like, now is the time. If you have mutual aid organizations, if you are in community where people are organizing to ensure that the vulnerable among us have the things that we need, now is the time to start doing that. Now is the time to start reassessing your fucking needs. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cuss so much, but I'm pissed. Okay, I'm angry. I'm very angry. But it is now the time. You know why? Because we are all we've got. This federal government allowed over 1 million of our neighbors, friends, and family to die as a result of this pandemic. Hospitals are now at the breaking point because your kids don't contribute to the GDP, okay? So they don't really give a fuck if your kids is sick up in the hospital with RSV. They don't care if our healthcare workers are pushed to the brink trying to care for a sick population. The overwhelming majority of us lack a true social safety net, okay? This class warfare has been declared upon you. Are you ready to fight? Are you ready to fight for the others among us who are being trampled upon, okay? Not just the rail workers. When we talk about this class warfare, So the Democrats and the Republicans, well, the Republicans have been declared class warfare upon us all. The Democrats have joined them, and not to say this is a new revelation at all. This is a two-headed monster on the same body that has declared war against the working and poor people of this country. Well, when we look to a democratically led city like New York City, you would think, I guess if you were simple-minded, you would think that the Democrats, might give a fuck about people and look out for people. Hold on. Big up to the super chat. Thank you so much, Chris Garrett. Thank you so much. Corporations and billionaires are multinational. Therefore, global strikes will be necessary, to invoke change. Otherwise, they will just play us against ourselves, country versus country. That's right. 100%. Thank you so much for your super chat support there, Chris. Thank you. So, like I said, class warfare. Congress has declared it on us. Well, the oligarchs have been declared it on us and have demanded that we get in line and are using our elected officials to make sure that, at least some of us stay in line. You will go to work, railroad workers. You will be compelled to do that. You do not have any rights or autonomies in order to strike or withhold your labor. Nope, can't do that. So that's class warfare. But here we go. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, ever since he has been elected in this position, he has come in guns blazing. Is he coming in guns blazing against poverty? No. Is he coming in guns blazing? Well, I guess technically, yes. I guess, yes, he has come in guns blazing against poverty, but not to end poverty for the people who are impacted the most by poverty, the unhoused people of New York City, of which there are many, many thousands, okay? People have been sleeping on the streets in New York really for generations. This is not a new phenomenon. And historically, generationally, there has been woefully few services truly dedicated to addressing the holistic needs of those who are unhoused, okay? But what Eric Adams announced today, or yesterday rather, was his intention to begin rounding up New York's unhoused people and committing them to hospitals without their permission. Involuntary detention, basically, is what Eric Adams is proposing here. This is his solution to unhoused. This is his solution to the mental health crisis, to lock people up, to put them away. I want us to take a look. USA Today did a little clip of this, and we hear some excerpts from what Eric Adams has proposed. So let's take a look at that.
People with severe and untreated mental illness who live out in the open, on the streets, in our subways, in danger and in need. We see them every day, and our city workers are familiar with their stories. These New Yorkers and hundreds of others like them are in urgent need of treatment, yet often refuse it when offered.
New York City police and emergency workers are being instructed to remove homeless people with severe mental illnesses from city streets and subways.
And all of us know it. You all know it. You're watching people standing there on the street talking to themselves, don't have shoes on, shadow boxing, unkept, and we are walking by them. We're pretending as though we don't see them. Sitting in those tents and those encampments, seeing human waste, stale food, dirty clothing, people who are dealing with mental health crises, and then we have the audacity to say that they should live that way? I'm just not going to do that.
If responders suspect they pose a danger to themselves, the homeless people would be involuntarily hospitalized, even if they aren't a danger to others. Officials said the city will immediately begin training police and emergency staff to ensure compassionate care.
That is just so irresponsible that we know that this person is about to probably go off the edge and harm someone, but we're going to wait until it happens. Not in this administration. We're going to be more responsive, we're going to be clear, we're going to be compassionate, but we're not punting this issue. We're going to face this issue head on.
that is some of the most disgusting shit I have ever heard come out of the mouth of truly anyone. And really, Eric Adams has been a show up there in fucking New York. They call him Black Giuliani for a reason. For him to sit there and say, and again, making all of this fear mongering, all of us, all trying to pit us against one another, our unhoused neighbors, they do not deserve to be involuntarily hospitalized. Have we learned any lessons from the 20th century? And I know wherever you guys are in America, at least, there is probably an abandoned institution in a state near you. I think in Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, what was the big one? I think it was called Pennhurst. Do y'all know the story of these institutions? Because they are really a carbon copy across the country, right? You have these huge institutions where people who have mental health crises, who are unhoused, who may have had some sort of disability, were basically warehoused and abandoned in these institutions. They were not cared for. They were not given proper treatment. All of the conditions that Eric Adams described of how some unhoused people live on the streets of New York City, living in filth, was the exact conditions of these institutions that Eric Adams is basically describing. What hospitals is he referring to in New York? Where is there space to put thousands of unhoused people in? And the thing is, he proposes this instead of providing actual housing. Why is the solution involuntary hospitalization and or homeless shelter? And let's throw a third one in there, Rikers, right? Rikers or jail. How come in all of this suggestion, since we in the suggestion mode here, Mayor Adams, how come you don't rent hotel rooms or rent whole ass apartments? There is inventory in New York City for homeless people to be accommodated, to put them in permanent housing. But because capitalism tells us that if you are not expanding labor into this system, you are not worthy of a home. You are not worthy of proper human decency. You are not deserving of basic human rights. I fucking hate it here really bad. I know I've said that maybe a time or two or seven, but I have to reinforce that because that is absolutely sickening and disgusting. And Eric Adams, his entire record so far, his very short tenure as the mayor of New York City, has been a war and an attack on poor people and the homeless. And you would think that New York City does have other fish to fry. The other aspect of this that really bothered me before we move on is that Mayor Adams says there that they're going to start training New York City police officers to be compassionate outreach people to deal with this houseless population. And when the fuck has NYPD and compassionate ever been used in the same goddamn sentence? The answer is never. The answer is never. So you want these people to have more encounters with law enforcement, which oftentimes is a violent encounter, whether or not it actually results in physical violence, the actual violence of forcibly displacing unhoused people, throwing away all of their belongings, usually including some of their very precious documents and paperwork that they have. That is violence. And you want more violence, says Eric Adams. This is why Democrats are completely fucking useless. Useless, you guys. Either we got to do a bout it third party, or again, I say burn it down and start again. We have to start this thing over. The next story I wanted to move on to, I'm so sorry I've taken up so much of y'all's time, but thank you all so much for hanging out. Do us a favor, give the video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to Status Coup News if you have not already subscribed. Consider becoming a member to Status Coup News. And if you're looking for me, if you want to hear me and what I do, you can find me over there at Burn It Down with Kim Brown on YouTube. I do my show every Tuesday and Friday live, 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can also catch me on Black Power Media hosting the Remix Morning Show, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. Come check us out. Big up. Hold on. Let me say this real quick to my guy, Tony. Tony just ran us a super chat there. Thank you so much, Tony. Tony says, I have mental health issues. It took how many years? A lot of years, 18 hours. It took 18 hours to be seen and 2 more to be processed. Oh my gosh. To be processed. Yep, I'm sorry. I need my reading glasses. And then to be processed and released. The system has delayed so badly, has decayed so badly. It's scary. Tony, I'm not even certain that the system was on stable footing to begin with to have decayed. I think that the way that this country deals with poor people and especially those experiencing mental health crisis, we don't have a social safety net in this country, period, point blank. You are on your own in capitalism, please believe it. And if you don't have a actual familial support system, you are screwed. On to my next topic, gang, because Elon Musk. You guys know Elon, Apartheid Clyde. Some people call him Apartheid Clyde. I like the name Apartheid Clyde. Big up to Sean Blackman from By Any Means Necessary Radio over there on Spooknet. He called him an apartheid American, an apartheid African American. Perhaps I'm messing that up. There's a lot of names for Elon, but definitely mediocre and idiot are absolutely applicable. After the purchase of Twitter for the price of $44 billion, Elon has engaged in a number of questionable moves for the platform, to the point that many are concerned about Twitter's sustainability going forward. And many are quite concerned that Elon Musk, who we all know, usually if you don't know, you should know, that Elon, he has a soft spot in his heart for the racists. After all, he was born and raised in apartheid South Africa. So of course, the racism hits him right there in the ventricles. He loves it. He can't get enough of it. And he apparently has the ear, or they, or some of the most notable right-wing trolls, let me put it that way, some of the most right-wing, white supremacist, fascist people on Twitter seem to have Elon Musk's ear. And one of them is Andy Go. Do you guys know who Andy Go is? I always mispronounce his name. I'm surprised I said it now. And it's so wild to see non-white white supremacists. It makes my head hurt. I don't understand it. I do not understand it. But okay, there we go. Andy No, non-white white supremacist. Very strange. But anyway, so Andy apparently has amplified a list of over 5,000 Twitter accounts, most of them anti-fascist accounts, most of them left-leaning accounts, and has used a bot system to enable mass reporting and the eventual suspensions of a number of prominent Twitter accounts, especially those who have been covering the fascist movement and the rise of fascism in America. One of those journalists is Vishal Singh. And I want us to look at Vishal's video. And Vishal's about to join us, by the way. We're going to talk about what this experience has been like for him and what it means for the principle of quote unquote free speech when the right wing takes control of a social media platform such as Twitter and deplatforms those who are anti-racist, anti-fascist, and working to expose those actors in this fascist movement. So I want us to take a look at what Vishal put together, giving us a bit of an explainer as to how this is all shaken out over the past week on Twitter with a number of people having their accounts suspended. Let's take a look.
Let the purge begin, they said. This is the infamous quote-unquote Antifa list being circulated online by neo-Nazis and fascist groups. It seems to have originated from this small Telegram account with less than 1,000 followers. Now, it was amplified by the Western Chauvinists, a hardcore Nazi community. For context, they spent this morning complaining that Adolf Hitler didn't use enough poison gas against Jewish people. Yeah. Naturally, my Twitter profile is in this quote-unquote list of targets to be purged. After sharing the Antifa list with their thousands of rabid fans, the Western chauvinist reshared a post from another neo-Nazi which boasted about a bot automated to make mass false reports against every profile in the list, a clear and direct abuse of the Twitter report system. The goal here is to purge anyone from Twitter who is firmly and publicly against fascism and white supremacy. And as you can see, this bot can move faster than any human being can. Now, in addition to these lists and bots from online neo-Nazis, far-right agitators have been spamming Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter and the richest man on Earth, with requests to remove anti-fascist accounts from Twitter. Many of these requests rely on false information or outright lies. And Musk has favorably responded to the fascists who lobby him, provided that they show him adequate respect and loyalty. Now, one of the profiles Musk was told about was mine. And so, within hours of fascists complaining to Elon Musk directly about me, while Nazis simultaneously circulated a purge list with my name on it and programmed bots to report every profile in the list, my Twitter profile was suspended. The original Nazi allied Telegram account that posted the original list has essentially taken credit for my account being taken down, as have the fascists who lobbied Elon Musk personally.
Singh is joining us today from the West Coast. Vishal, I'm so very glad to see you. I'm glad that you were able to make some time for us today. And I want us to get started with what in the entire fuck is going on here. And pardon my French here, Vishal, but Elon Musk is championing himself and his newly purchased Twitter platform as the space for free speech. But very clearly, if you and the work that you do and the work and the similar minded works of others such as Chad Loader and the Elm Fork John Brown Gun Club, also accounts that have been suspended that had pretty significant followings, let's talk about this. It only took a few hours to get your account completely suspended on Twitter because of this bot attack.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, Kim. So basically, it's been an interesting thing to watch. You know, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, it's kind of sent shockwaves through lots of different kinds of places with the radical changes he's made to the platform, the thing with kind of taking away all of the safety measures, the content moderation, all the disinformation countermeasures that in place. I mean, Twitter already was pretty bad about that, but now it's gotten even worse by getting rid of the people who were trying to kind of keep a lid on the hate speech and the disinformation. Well, it kind of escalated with Elon Musk, you know, right after he reinstated Trump as an obvious kind of political stunt. You know, Trump isn't even using his Twitter account, but it was kind of just a stunt to grab people's attention, talk about the hyper politicized nature of Twitter right now. And Elon Musk's argument is kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to bring everybody to the table and we can debate in the marketplace of ideas, that old centrist bullshit. And what kind of happened was all at once, Elon Musk just started banning, and Twitter just started banning a lot of left-leaning and far-reaching accounts from the left all at once, seemingly at the requests of, you know, far-right agitators like Ian Miles Cheong or Anti-No, Thomas Morales. I mean, these guys are not taken seriously in the journalism world, but somehow, because the richest man in the world likes their Twitter account, they can decide who's a real journalist, who isn't a journalist, who should be silenced, who shouldn't be silenced. And I don't find it to be a coincidence that this is all happening at the same time as neo-Nazis are being brought back to the platform. Racist hate speech is being brought back to the platform. QAnon is being brought back to the platform. This is all happening at the same time. It's not leveling the playing field. What it is giving one side of this conversation, a very genocidal and racist side of this conversation, carte blanche to say whatever they want, while the side that's exposing them, talking about them, discussing the dangers and the violence that those movements have, those groups are being silenced. Those groups are being pushed to go private, hide all of their posts. And what's happening is now Twitter is becoming more of a far-right ecosystem the way 4chan is, except it's a mainstream social media platform.
And Vishal, I want for people that may not be familiar with your work, I want you to explain the kind of work that you have done and the kind of on the ground reporting that you mainly featured through your Twitter account, because that is how I came to discover you, because you were always out there covering these fascist rallies that happen to, you know, coincide with LGBTQ events or, you know, the movement for Black Lives events, and these racists, these neo-Nazis, these the 3%ers, these oath keepers, these Proud Boys would show up, and you, and along with others like Chad Loader, you guys would be naming and shaming these guys. And in fact, I know Chad's reporting, some of it was used, in fact, by the Department of Justice to try to identify some of the January 6th insurrectionists. And I imagine that they probably, the DOJ likely used some of your work for that as well. So talk to me about even the nature of your work. And before your Twitter account becoming suspended, you were already a target to begin with by these fascists and Nazis like Andy No.
Exactly. So my work has been, I'm an independent journalist focusing on civil rights protests in the Los Angeles and Southern California area, and studying the rise of far-right extremism. That has led me to cover Black Lives Matter protests, pro-LGBT protests, as well as far-right demonstrations, kind of the anti-vaxxer movement, the anti-masker movement, the Proud Boys, the 3%ers, a lot of that kind of business, and even some more hardcore white supremacist groups like the KKK and neo-Nazis. I've seen it all. And a lot of my work has focused around exposing kind of their narratives, kind of putting a hole in a lot of their disinformation, and specifically exposing and identifying white supremacists and neo-Nazis in their communities, so that those communities can know if there is a dangerous ethno-nationalist living in their community and going to protests regularly. A lot of this information has been cited by academic papers. I know it's been cited in various investigations. It's been cited in my work, as well as many other articles from a variety of mainstream journalists from across the political spectrum. I mean, Fox News likes to talk shit about me, but they'll still cite my tweets, you know? And at the end of the day, I'm there, I'm filming it, I have what's happening. And people have found a lot of use for that, whether or not it's commentary, whether it's adding to that. And removing my Twitter account, obviously it's a pain in my ass, but it also disrupts countless other journalists who have embedded or linked to my tweets as evidence, because now those links are broken, you know? For example, with the pro/anti-LGBT clash that happened last year at We Spa, which is a popular Korean spa that was targeted by transphobes and Tucker Carlson over whether or not they should allow trans people there. There was protests between anti-fascists and Proud Boys, and things got very violent. And my reporting was the only reporting that proved that the far right actually stabbed 2 people with a combat knife. That was not reported by any other sources. Eventually, places like the Washington Post picked up on it, and they were citing my articles. They were citing my little website and my blog, because I had the raw footage, the raw evidence of what was going on. And unfortunately now, if you go dig up that old Washington Post article, guess what? The link doesn't work. So what you have is, you know, it's retroactive, the damage that Musk is doing by getting rid of these leftist and anti-fascist accounts like CrimeThink, these databases, online databases of so much information that people have been using, researchers have been using. And it's frustrating to know that, you know, I could start over from scratch. Sure, I could upload these all to my private websites, but there's so many other people out there who are relying on that information, who are using that information, and now they don't necessarily know how to find it because it was wiped from the internet.
Literally whitewashed.
Yep.
Literally whitewashed. And again, that's not accidental. This sanitizing of history, basically, as you said, with your account and others, have been research repositories for the growth and evolution and the rise of the fascist movement here in this country. And it's not, to me, an accident that those things have been intentionally wiped away at the behest of apartheid, right?
Yeah. You know, and you brought up January 6th. You know, it's well known that a lot of the identities of January 6th Capitol insurrectionists were identified by online sleuths, people on Twitter, independent journalists like myself, like Chad, like so many others who have been doing this work. I mean, I've barely scraped the surface. You know, I've identified 2 Capitol rioters. That's not much, but it's something. Everybody kind of contributes to this, and it's been a team effort, an effort that the Department of Justice has not been up to the task of doing. It's really been the online sleuths doing all the work and the FBI taking the credit when people on Twitter laid it all out for them and for the world.
So Vishal, I mean, going forward, first of all, please plug your website so people who have not yet been introduced to your work can very easily and readily find it. What's your website?
Yeah, so my website is just vpsreports.com. Simple. My old Twitter handle, just vpsreports.com. You can find articles, blogs that I've been writing for the last 2 years about, the Black Lives Matter movement, white supremacy movements, the rise in protest and political violence in Southern California, all kinds of stuff there, as well as links to my work on Left Coast Right Watch News, another great publication, and It's Going Down News, another leftist publication that's currently being targeted by Andy No and the Twitter troll. It's one thing that they took me down, but they're also now trying to take down the leftist publication that I write for. They want to completely erase leftist voices from the entire conversation.
And in your
We
opinion,
can't even write for our own newspapers anymore because they won't let the journalists be online, and now they're saying that those outlets can't be online either unless you're the centrist, mainstream, regular kind of news perspective, or of course the right-wing perspective.
Vishal, because you've been in the mix, truly in the belly of the beast when it comes to covering these fascists and these white supremacy movements, when you see these people, the Ian Chongs, the Andy Knows, and I'm sorry, I don't know these people, and it's only really through you that I do know these folks. But when you see them celebrating, gleeful, emboldened, and continuing to pick up momentum. Colin, our gentleman who presses the buttons behind the scenes here at Status Coup, told us that one of our colleagues here on Status Coup, Tina, was also included on this list of 5,000 Antifa accounts, anti-fascist accounts. Talk about free speech. It's clearly some nonsense at this point, at least what it looks like on Twitter. And what would you tell people who still remain on Twitter, who have the kind of accounts that, like yours, with the political slant as yours, who are all our common enemies, these white supremacists and these fascists? For those who remain, what would you tell them to do with their content and the things that they decide to talk about? And what else do you take? Well, where does this end, basically, as it relates to Twitter specifically? And do you see this perhaps spreading out to other social media platforms where the right wing will commandeer it, take it over, and get rid of the voices that oppose them?
Yeah, well, for the folks that are still on Twitter, still speaking their voice, I say just keep doing it. Double down, triple down, don't back down, because what they're looking for is the self-censorship, the fear of acting and saying and speaking your mind rather than actual systems in place stopping you, is that it does the work for them. They're relying on that. So if you still have a platform, if you still have a space, even if it's just 80 followers who like your funny little leftist memes, just keep going. Go. Just do what you want to do, say what you want to say. Like this, even if these are private platforms, not at the whims of the First Amendment, it's still up to you to express yourself, no matter what way you have it, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's just with silly things you write on your website. It doesn't matter. Just keep going. In terms of where we're going, if it's going to affect other platforms, I know for me it already did, right? Like my Instagram account also got taken down within days after my Twitter account. So it's already starting to affect other social media platforms. Not that Meta, Facebook, or whatever was any more trustworthy than Twitter. That's already in a bad place. A lot of these social media platforms, Elon Musk is the popular bad guy right now, but most of them are just as bad as him, but more competent. He's kind of the incompetent devil here in the way that Trump was. But there's a lot of other folks in the social media and Silicon Valley space that are a lot smarter than Elon Musk and a lot better at implementing their fascist ideologies into functional systems. So you have to just stay vigilant, stay on top of things, keep moving forward. Obviously, I'm not the only journalist on that list that's been targeted. Obviously, Status Coup journalist Tina has. A lot of my other colleagues from other news outlets, people that I respect, people that I look up to, they're on this list, which is just absolutely insane. Even just regular middle of the road journalists that are just like, hey, don't kill gay people. Like, even that is now considered far left, which is just ridiculous. So I urge people to just keep using their voice. The harder the harder the far right tries to squeeze, the more they're going to realize that speech is sand and it's just going to slip through their fingers.
Very well said. Vishal, I am a big fan of yours. I'm a huge supporter of the work that you do. And I'm so encouraged that you were not discouraged by this and you are going to continue the work, the very important, integral work to defeating fascism and to defeating white supremacy. The best disinfectant is sunlight. And I think you have done an outstanding job throughout the duration of your career of doing exactly that. And I'm sorry that you have been targeted in this way. And I know that's not the first time that you've been targeted you've been even targeted physically. I mean, Vishal is a soldier out here, guys. I'm not sure if you all realize this, but Vishal is a soldier. Well, I don't know about Jesus, but Vishal's a soldier. He's an old soldier out here. So please support him. VPSreports.com is where you can find his work. We've been speaking with journalist Vishal Singh from the West Coast. Vishal, solidarity and love, and thank you so much for joining me today. And I appreciate everything that you have done.
Of course. Thank you, Kim. Always a pleasure to be here. Have a good one.
Thank you. You guys. VPSreports.com. Go sign up. Support Vishal's work. Vishal does incredible things. And I have to say, gang, I'm a little offended that I am not on that list of 5,000 accounts. The right wing has not targeted me. Well, not yet. Well, not today. Jesus, they did target me like a year ago. And you can go to my YouTube channel. And the very first video that pops up is when Tucker Carlson tried to send the FBI to my fucking house. And that is not an overstatement. And if you don't believe me, go to Burn It Down with Kim Brown and check out the video. It is right there. But thanks again to my guest, Vishal Singh. I appreciate everybody checking out today's episode of Status Coup News. Please be sure to give the video a like on your way out the door and support this channel, support my channel, support Black Power Media. It is more and more vital that left voices, that radical voices be supported in these times, gang. You see what is happening. You saw the way they got Russian media up the fuck up out of here and on YouTube also, okay? So voices that are against the white supremacist and fascist narrative are being targeted, and it's more and crucially important that we have the support of viewers like yourself. So thank you all so much for watching. On behalf of, thank you to Jordan, and on behalf of Colin pushing the buttons in the background, we will see you guys back here on Status Coup tomorrow. See y'all later. Bye-bye. Have a great one, everybody.